47 and 8. This stop is Church Avenue in Cincinnati.
Thank you. Have a good night. Appreciate it. Excuse me? Thank you. Looking down at the patch of dirt in the planter box right there. All right, so anyway, keep telling you the use of the color gray. So the woman sitting across from me, you know, she takes her umbrella out and rests it on the chair, staring at me. You know, then we get past coming towards the Bojangle. There was a gray vehicle coming out of the parking lot, and the dude sitting in the driver's seat, he does the peace sign, right? And then she takes her, you see her taking her finger and sticking it into her eyes. Right, New York Predators Department all the way down there, flashing their lights, right, their blue lights. Okay, and then I come out the bus, you see the woman standing there with her lips folded like this. Oh yeah, look, look, look. He's looking at his boots. You know, they always do this shit. It's what is called reverse psychology, trying to use colors to manipulate me into not recording and then staring at my phone. All right. You hear the sirens in the background? Again, I want you to understand what it is that they do. And like I said, I'm not going to allow them to get away with it, right? And that's one thing, like I said, that my purpose is greater than theirs. All right? All right, now remember I talked about the color gray, so let's see how many gray cars will be driving by, okay? And I talk about it, what it is that they do and how they do it. So I showed you guys, again, how on the bus, how they target me. You know, the funny thing is that she takes out her umbrella and she puts it on the bus as if she was getting off the bus. She wasn't getting off the bus though. You know what I'm saying? All right, but this is what they do. As soon as I get to my stop, they'll do shit like that. So her taking her umbrella out, putting it on the seat, and the umbrella is what? Look at the color of the umbrella. Black. It's the black and it has brown handles, right? You know what I'm saying? This is what they do. And then when I expose them, another gray vehicle. See a lot of gray vehicles, right? Then when I expose them, then you hear the sirens, right? Because what I'm showing is exactly what I say is being done. And they know this. So the use of the siren is a form of coercive threats against me, right? For exposing them for what it is that they're doing. And that if they are held accountable for what it is, if their ass is caught and arrested, which they should be, that they will assassinate me. Okay. But again, that's a criminal organization when I talk about that, right? It's like the mob, right? What do the mob do to witness sometimes, right? If the witness is not placed in protective custody, what they do? They assassinate the witness, right? You know what I'm saying? Like I said, the New York Predators Department operate in the same manner. They operate in the same manner. Okay, when these corrupt racist cops and the corrupt Sambos and Sambinas on the New York Predators Department engage in criminality, which the majority of them do, right? We know that they are liars. We know that they lie, they manipulate, they deceive, okay? And that's nothing new. But like I said, what VSTIs have been exposing is serious, right? It is a serious crime that they don't want to be held responsible for, which is what? The illegal implantation of microchips in our brains, right? And they don't want to be caught because they know what that means for them. They know what that means for them, right? You see, you're a Predator department all the way down there. See the lights, right? So what happened earlier today? See, earlier today they were very brazen in their attacks, right? Very brazen. So look at what happened now, right? When I exposed them, I continue to expose them. You know, after I came back with my daughter, we went out for a lunch, right? They started with the sirens, right? As soon as I started to upload my videos, they started with the noise campaign, the heavy noise attacks, all right, to try to deter me. That didn't work. So uploaded my video, and then, you know, they remained silent for a little bit, and then Pam came in the house, and then they started with the noise campaign again. And then Pam lied to me. You know, like I keep telling, I said, you be trying to gaslight me, okay? I know you're, you know, whatever it is that you have them doing, or whatever this is that you're engaging, you know, they're manipulating your ass. You don't even understand it. Your ass health is getting worse and worse, but you still thinking that, you know, the honey trap that they sent you, that person really care about you or have you. No, they don't. Because the fact that you can't even be honest. You know, so when I had called her to see where she was, because she had called me to let me know that she was going to get her nails done. I said, okay, fine. You know what I'm saying? You know, I look at the time and it was minutes to 8. And I called her and I'm like, hey, where are you? She's like, oh, I'm on my way home. I'm in the car. I'm on my way home. I said, okay, fine, right? She's like, you know, because I'm like, she's going to get her nails done. I know she get her nails done by where she works, right? At Methodist in Park Slope. So half an hour went by, and, you know, I didn't hear anything from her. So I said to Alyssa, asked me, she's like, where's mommy? I said, well, call her and see how far she is, right? This was like about 40 minutes, half an hour to 40 minutes later, okay? So she should have been home. She was, you know. But anyhow, so my daughter called her, and she's like, oh, I'm on the bus. You know, I'll be home in the next 15 to 20 minutes. And I'm like, so when she gets in the house, I said, you know, you told me you was in the car. She was like, no, I wasn't. But again, they do that to test my memory, right? To see if I remember certain things. You know, I always talk about how they will do shit like that, right? Because I'm telling you, it's funny now. These motherfuckers are funny, right? They'll always try to justify what it is that they're doing because I remember one thing, right? I'm saying, and I'm trying to improve my memory. So it isn't like I gotta be like, oh, I don't remember anything. Whatever I remember, I remember. But I want you to understand how the criteria is so for black people, right? When I talk about what it is that they do, right? See, if it's a white person and they remember, right? If they remember 50% of what it is that, you know, that they remember, they're like, okay, that person is, you know, yeah, he's damaged or she's damaged, right? But a black person, if you remember 10 to 20% of the things that you read, right? Let's say you read a book and you can remember 10 to 20% of it. Oh, he's fine, she's fine, nothing wrong with them. That's their mindset, another great vehicle. That is their mindset. You know, when I talk about the NFL players, right? And how the NFL literally denied black players who had signs of concussion, right? That they had to endure a greater diagnosis, right? Even though some of them had greater diagnosis of concussion, that they still were denied, right? Rare vehicles, what I said, rare vehicle, right? And but this is what the system does. You know, it's like for black people, for black women, when they go into the hospital and they, you know, complain about pain, right? Gray and black thing, a jacket, I should say, right? When black people and particularly black women, right, when they give birth and they complain about their pain, the white doctors ignore it, right? Because they have to have a greater threshold for pain than white people, right? Any other group of people. So if a white woman complains about a little pain, she gets attention right away, right? If a black woman compared, oh, that's okay. It's just, you'll go through it. It's okay, whatever. Send her home and she dies. Right? And here's the thing. And like I talk about the brainwashing, the two gray trucks, another gray vehicle. All right? See the color gray? Gray. See what I'm talking about? Yeah, I know what I'm talking about. Okay? I know what I'm talking about now. Okay. So yeah, gray. All right? And the fact is that, like I said, black women in particular, particularly in the field of medicine, nursing, doctor's assistant and so forth, they perpetuate the same racist behavior as the white doctors. Okay, like I tell you, my experience have taught me, I don't just say things just to say things. I do the research, I read articles, I read peer review articles, I read research paper, I read court cases against hospitals in which doctors have ignored black patients' pain and suffering, right? And including my own. I talk about when, I had, when I fainted, right? Literally fainted because I had an ulcer. And they were trying to take blood from me, right? And they were sticking so many needles up my arm. And I said, listen, no one is sticking any more needles in my arm until you get somebody here that knows how to do this. And a black woman said to me, look, you're referring to the park. All right, and a black woman said to me, she said, oh, you a big boy. Yeah, fuck you. Give another middle finger. A black woman said to me, oh yeah, you could, a black nurse, female nurse. She's like, oh, you's a big boy, you can handle it. You know what I'm saying? That's what she said to me, a black woman, right? So again, I understand, like I said, when black women get into certain positions, when they're around certain groups of people, right, they adopt their mindset because they want to be like them. You know what I'm saying? They morph into the white racist nurse. They morph into the white racist doctors, right? This is who they are. This is what they do. Why? Because women, particularly women who have faced oppression and continue to face oppression, discrimination, right? Particularly women, and it doesn't matter which group of women they are more likely to adopt the behavior of the people who are oppressing them. Why? Because these are the people who will give them the jobs. These are the people who elevate them over the men in their group. And so they feel that they're more important. They feel that, they want to be with those group of people, right? Those men in particular, right? So this is why you see a lot of them are, particularly when you look at the amount of black women, that's not black women, Negropean women who identify as bisexual and lesbian, right? A lot of time is because they got turned out by white women, right? Or they got turned out by the predators within their within the lesbian and bisexual community, right? Who are predatory. All right, like no gay man be walking around saying, "Oh, I'm gonna turn him out." That's not that gay. Even as men, gay men don't do that. But you hear lesbians say that, and bisexual women say that about other women. All right, and they will literally get them drunk, right? And or even drug them and make out with them. Okay, and that's not considered rape. Understand that, right? That is not considered rape. Right? You know what I'm saying? That is not considered sexual assault. Right? But that is what it is. And they take advantage of that. Because also women are more touchy-feely on one another. You know what I'm saying? If you are a straight person, look, you're referred to the apartment. There they go. See when I call their name, see how they show up? Oh yeah, that's their ego. That's what that is. And when they do that, they give me all the proof that I need. Right? So when I said, oh look, you don't see them, right? They show up, right? What they do? Again, because they are ego driven. You got to understand the predator mindset of predator law enforcement, right? You got to understand who they are and what it is that they do. Okay, and like I said, there ain't no fear here, right? They can do what? They can arrest me, they can do whatever they can, but the same thing's going to happen to them. Okay, like I said, and I don't believe that. That's what I know. Okay, and I can say that with the utmost confidence. All right, so again, this is, but that's acceptable in those community and those group of women who do that to other women. You understand? And particularly when they're teenagers. And that's why I would say, if you are a teenage girl, you know, you don't need to be hanging out with other teenagers who are bisexual or lesbian. All right, because it is in their nature to try to have sex with you and convert you, right? Or to say, they would say turn you out, okay? And because this society, it pushes women into alternative sexual lifestyle because they profit off of it, you know, and then also that, but it causes confusion. Also that it doesn't, it diminish the family, right? And what you would consider, you know, they'll say, well, there's an alternative family. Yeah, but you know, you need family to reproduce, right? To continue your nation, right? And that family involves a man, woman, and children. Now, you know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, you may have family where you have 2 men and a child. You may have 2 women and a child, right? But that is not the norm. And in any society, it has never been the norm. It has always been an outline. There have never been a society where the majority of people within the society are bisexual, gay, or lesbian. Never. There have always been a subset of people within the society who are that way, right? And even today, when they try to make a big deal out of these things, you know, but when you go look at the overall population of people who identify as such, compared to the majority of people in America, they're just a small percentage. So why do the media promote these things as if it's like, you know, it's like a large group of people, right? And I'm not saying that's not the norm in terms of, you know, society accepting these things, right? What I'm saying is that the media make it seem as if that those kind of family is equal or equate to, look, a lot of great people, look, see? Right? That those group of family equates to heterosexual family, which they don't. You understand? But people don't understand what the media is doing. And the media is used as a tool to stroke fear and anger, you know, to these groups of people. You understand? Because once people start to believe that, you know, this is becoming more of the norm than the heterosexual, then, you know, people will defend what it is that they call normal, right? So the media is used to distort the reality, right? To stroke up anger and fear in order so that people can become, you know, anti-gay or what have you, while trying to push this agenda in people's faces, all right? It's what is called doublespeak. But the ultimate goal behind it is to manipulate people into this anti-LGBTQ, anti-lesbian, bisexual, anti-gay, or anti-homosexual agenda. And even though a lot of them in the media are that way, you understand. But you have to understand how they are being used, right? I talk about the sadistic mindset of the people who are in position of power, right? The wealthy. They are sadistic. They love to cause conflict. They love to cause division, right? And for those of us who, I'll put my bag there. And for those of us who know the truth, right? They're going to attack because that's who they are. They are afraid of the truth. All right, so you should go and read anything about the the transhumanist agenda, and you will see what I'm talking about. You will see what I'm talking about. Because it's not to say that they're making a lot of money from that, except for, you know, now that they have used dark psychology on young people, because it is projected, well, the great vehicles, it is projected that the sexual reassignment surgery industry is going to be I think it'll say a $30 billion industry by the year 2030. So imagine from 5 years from now, how many people they're going to manipulate. How many children, I should say, they're going to confuse and manipulate, right? And I said, you always got to look at Sweden and what Sweden did. Sweden did the research. They did the study. And they said that there's no way that the amount of young people today in Sweden who are identifying as such, that there's no way that that could be natural. Why? Because when they look at the past trends every decade, they saw a very what's the word I'm looking for here? Incremental rise in people identifying as such. But they say within the past 2 decades, right, that jumped exponentially. So there had to be something that is pushing that to the levels in which young people are identifying as such. And so when they did the study and they did the research, they said it is a lot of children are being groomed, right, using what is called social contagion. Just like Facebook used emotional contagion. So social contagion also involved emotional contagion, where you have adult LGBTQ people going online, right, and literally using dark psychology, tactics, or dark psychology, right, or what they call what's the word I'm looking for? To get to, well, I can't remember the what I'm looking for right now. But anyway, but dark psychology, right, and psychological manipulation, right, to do what? A dark persuasion. That's what it's called, dark persuasion. To do what? To manipulate young people into believing that they're in the wrong body, right? That they're so that they start identifying as another gender while being in the wrong body, right? This is research done by Sweden. Go look it up. This is how Sweden banned sexual reassignment surgery for teenagers, right? Because not only that, but what happened is that also that we got to understand too that we have doctors and psychiatrists who are sick and they're twisted and they have an agenda, right, which is to create more people like them. And you got to understand that these people will get into these fields in order to use manipulation, lies, and deception to create more people like them, right? Whether they do it within the society, using money and so forth and so forth. It is an agenda, okay? So when you start to understand it, just like in Sweden, right? They said, okay, no puberty blockers for children. You hear the sirens? That's right. But you see these sick bastards here, and I'm saying the sick bastards who are in positions of power and authority, right, who have an agenda, are manipulating our children. You look at within the churches, which is a big part of a big part of their agenda in terms of manipulating and weaponizing the churches. Okay, so while the churches may speak out against those things, the pastors are having sex with the young boys. You understand? While the churches are speaking out these things, the pastors is having an affair with women in the congregation, right? And what that does to these women, because these pastors wouldn't leave their wife, it traumatized them, right? Because they hold on to that pastor as if he's the emissary of Jesus and God. So they understand the power that they yield, right? And so they also engage in that, to where these women will in turn will be like, well, if I can't have the pastor, I don't want nobody else, and they end up going to these groups with other women and such, and the next thing you know, they're being turned out, right? They manipulate us through our emotions. They manipulate us through trauma, right? By causing us trauma, by manipulating us to cause trauma to each other. Anyway, I don't know where the hell he's speeding to go. But anyhow, right? This is the shit that they do. So being able to look at these things and to identify these things is key. And if you can identify it, they're going to try to stop you. They don't want you to see the programming. They don't want you to see the subliminal message that they do within the society to manipulate our young people. Because in cognitive warfare, any sort of coercive persuasion programming is to psychologically manipulate us to where our conscious mind cannot see it. Right? When you look at these sort of programming, right, our conscious mind cannot identify it. So what happens when you have people like myself and others who can identify these things, right? Look, let's say these little kids with the mask on. Look. I tell you, a bunch of cowards. When I talk about how cowards they are. All right. He's pointing at me like 17, 18 minutes. Well, like I said, they'll use teenagers because they're a bunch of cowards. That's who they are. Right? That's who they are. They're a bunch of cowards. Like I said, as a black man, I'm not scared of my people. If they come for me, I come for them too. Don't matter. Like I said, they can send the Europeans. As long as they keep it on the psychological level, it's fine. As soon as they get physical, I'm gonna put you down before you put me down. Simple as that. And I have no problem with taking your life if you want to try to take my life. Understand that. All right. So this is what they'll do. But anyhow, cowards is going to do whatever they're going to do, right? They're going to use young people, young children, because they're cowards. That's all. They're cowards. Just like how they claim, I say, our people are the most cowardice, the most docile and passive, but they'll fight each other. They'll fight each other, though. The nigger peers will fight each other. Look, you're looking at my phone and looking at the direction of the teenagers. Right? Look at the Predators now. Look at the Predators showing up. Look at the Predators showing up. The New York Predator Department. See? Let me come over here. Look, looking down in the basement. Oh, yeah. See what I said? Go back to my videos and I talk about how they will walk by there and look down at the basement, or have you. So look at the Predators. Oh, yeah. And you see the red van pass. As the red van pass by, he walks and he leaves. Okay, so like I said, they're a bunch of cowards. This is what they do, using teenagers. All right, so why do you think they have such access to teenagers? Because they also engage in essaying of teenagers. All right, we're dealing with a cult. That's who we're dealing with. All right, those in positions of authority, those in the Predator Department of New York City, the New York Predator Department, and their predator officers, their cults, they engage in these threats. But like I said, there ain't no fear here. Right? They listen. I keep saying, why as a black man do we fear police officers? Right? Why as black people do we fear police officers? When every time they shoot a black man, they say they're scared for their life, right? Why? We gotta stop being afraid of these motherfuckers. I keep telling you, stop being afraid of them. They're afraid of you. So why are you afraid of them? Right? You can die, they can die. And until we understand that when they kill our family members, we go after their asses, that's when they're going to stop. And I have no problem with that. Let one of these motherfuckers kill any family members of mine and see what happens. And that's the attitude we should take. But because, the majority of Europeans are cowards, they get on their knees and they pray to Jesus, and Jesus don't come help their ass. Right? I gotta tell you, I see white men, cops will let white men go into their home and they come out with AR-15s and kill their asses. They're not afraid of those white supremacists. But they're afraid of you, black man, black woman. Right? They say it all the time. I'm afraid of my life, for my life. So why the fuck you a cop? Right? Why the fuck you a cop? We gotta have a militaristic mindset. We gotta have a mindset to let them know that we're not afraid of you. No matter what you do, we are not afraid of you. Okay? And you can send all the threats you want. You can use teenagers and this and that. It just shows you how much of a pussy they are, how much cowardly they are. Right? Now what happened? We're not supposed to be scared of pussies. Particularly when they're carrying guns and badges. Right? Particularly when they can use teenagers to commit their crimes. Right? So that they can get away with it. Right? You know what I'm saying? So, again, you got to understand who we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who walk around with bulletproof vests, with guns and badges, and yet they're afraid. Right? Yet they're afraid. Right? They can threaten what have you. Listen, like I said, they understand that what they've done is a serious crime, and they want no accountability. They don't want to be discovered. But as a victim, they will be exposed, and I will hold them accountable. All right? You don't get to microchip people without their consent. You don't get to engage in covert warfare against the members of the public. You don't get to break the law because you have a gun and a badge and think that you're going to get away with it. right? People need to understand. This is why society is going to go down, particularly in America. Why? Because they have corrupted the majority of the police departments. They have corrupted the churches. They have corrupted the government. Right? You have a president who engaged in an illegal war, and Congress does nothing. If that was a Democratic president, they would have went for the article of impeachment. And I'm not saying that's a fact. Right? They would have filed article of impeachment against a Democratic president. Right? Look what they did with Bill Clinton. Right? For getting a blowjob in the Oval Office. Whereas Republican presidents have engaged in so much criminal activities while in office that it makes what Bill Clinton did minuscule. But this is what they do. They've been saying this for the longest while. What it is that their agenda is, which is to do what? It is to do what? To create a war. Whether it be a race war in America, whether it be World War III. Right? And we tend not to ignore. We tend to not pay attention to what's going on. We tend to ignore the shit that they say. Right? Particularly these predators in the police departments. Right? When you see these secret texts talking about, they're going to go hunting N-words and that they can't wait for, the race war to start. They're the only people saying this shit. Right? They're the only people saying it. And we are the only people ignoring it. Even the black Sambos and Sambinas on the police department. That these same racist people that they call their partner, when they start their race war, what are they going to do? Oh, you one of those good Negroes, so you're chosen. We just as long as you be good little servants, right? That's what they say, right? Oh, that's a good Negro. He's not like the rest of them. You know what I'm saying? Because they can identify Negropeans. They can identify Sambos and Sambinas. They can identify those who will take money and turn their back on their own people, their own children. Okay? Some of us are not like that, though. Even though we may be the few. Right? We may be the few. But like I said, you don't get to try to do what you've done to me and you think that I'm going to be silent about it. Right? Fuck out of here. Look. Ah. You walking across the street yawning. Yawning too. Fuck out of here, man. Like they always say, right? You don't get to tell the victim how they should how they should deal with their victimization. So yeah. As Bernie Mark says, I ain't scared of you motherfuckers, and I'm gonna continue to say what I gotta say. And I'm gonna continue to speak out, I'm gonna continue to expose everything that it is that y'all are doing. Alright? So fuck out of here. And like I said, y'all fucking lucky I don't have the training that I need to have. Alright? Because I would take the fight to y'all motherfuckers. So y'all lucky. This is why they don't want black people to own weapons. Because they know what they do to black people. And they know that there are those amongst us that we will take that fight to them. Alright? We cannot be so cowardly that we continue to allow them to do this to us and our children and their children. Because it's going to get worse. Right? And all the Sambos and Negropeans in the churches, right? What's going to happen when they start coming for the churches, huh? What's going to happen? Because let me tell you something, right? The reason why they had to dilute the black church is because the black church in the past was used as a force to advance black people. Right? Not today. Now today the churches are used as clown shows, as circus. Right? As the pimps standing up in the pulpit, threatening their congregation, manipulating their congregation. So yeah. And this goes for these pastors too. What's going to happen when they start taking y'all motherfuckers out? Y'all conspiring to take me out? Or what's going to happen when y'all get taken out, huh? What's going to happen? You don't get to threaten me and think that I'm going to be silent. Shit, you threaten me, I'm going to threaten your ass back too. You want to do psychologically? I do psychologically and verbally. Right? But it's going to be a response to your threat. I ain't going to walk up to you and threaten you. That's not me. But if you threaten me, I'm gonna threaten you back. Simple as that. So yeah, these Negropeans, man, they're something else. They're funny, they're stupid. That's why I call them the Dans, the dumbass Negropeans, right? Because they would believe everything the white man said. They believe everything these tricksters that look like them say, these pimps in the pulpit, right? And they want to act as if they're some good people. Come on, man. You know, when these pastors are abusing these children in the church, what do? What do? They blame the children. Oh, it's their fault. Like the pastor can't do no wrong. Right? These pastors, they talk a whole bunch of shit, cheating on each other. Right? And the churches and the people in the churches are so damn brainwashed. They're so damn, well, guess what? Your Bible talk about these pastors though. Your Bible talks about it. That's why they don't want you to read the Bible on your own. Right? That's why they don't want you to read the Bible on your own. Because if you read the Bible on your own, you will notice that certain passages in the Bible talk about your pastors or the shit that they do. Right? My people are destroyed because they reject knowledge people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Right? And you priests and Pharisees, just as how you've turned your back on the people, I will turn my back on you. It's in your Bible. Right? The priests and Pharisees have taken away knowledge from the people. Right? Your Bible talks about this shit. Okay? And again, because, you know, this is what religion does. So people have experience with religion. Every group of religious sect engage in the same destructive behavior. Right? They don't believe in the God they claim to believe in. They don't fear the God they claim to believe in. You got to understand that. You got to know that. Right? Ain't no way you think that these people fear the God of the Bible when they behave in the way that they behave. Right? You don't even fear the God. You talk about you want a God-fearing man and a God-fearing woman. You want a God-fearing woman, but your woman dressing half naked outside. Right? She's cursing your ass out. She's telling you that you are not the head of the household. Right? As a Christian man. But they want a God-fearing Christian man. Right? And you talk about you want a God-fearing Christian woman. Right? But you have your woman dressing half naked. Right? You have her engaging in all sort of behavior that is not what a pastor's wife is supposed to engage in. And you think that's totally okay. Because, you know, you're trying to be young, right? You're trying to match the young rappers, right? With the jewelry and the expensive clothes and all this stuff. I mean, you know, the church is a bunch of clowns. They're a bunch of fools. This is what they do. And then they mislead the younger generation. And so the younger generation do what now? What happens to the younger generation now? Right? So the younger generation now have no knowledge. No knowledge of self. Right? They don't even know the Bible, but they're quoting Bible scriptures. They don't even know how to interpret it. Right? Because again, this is what they do. Well, look at this clown over here. Look at this clown over here. What you looking at, bro? What you looking up at, bro? Look at him with the red hat. What you looking up at, bro? Huh? You know what I'm saying? But yeah, this is the shit that they do. This is what they do. This is how they engage in targeting. Right? This is how they turn people against each other. Right? And then they're going to get away with it. No, why? Because again, microchipping people. And how they do it is to manipulate you covertly, right? To try to entrap you and then chip you so that they can get away with it. So that if you come forward, then they can say, well, we're going to charge you for this and we're going to charge you for that. Come on now. People should be well aware of what it is that they do, right? But no, right? They believe more in their bullshit religion and that they try to bring you to Jesus, right? They don't even know who Jesus is. They always talk about, oh, I know my God. How you know your God? How you know your God? You know, oh, my God speak to me. How your God speaking to you? Huh? How your God speaking to you? I challenge anybody to tell me how their God speaking to you. When the Bible tells you that God no longer speaks to human beings, right? And when he did speak to human beings, he had a selected group of people who he spoke to, which was his prophets. Now you count how many prophets of the Bible. And today, all these pastors who call themselves prophets and this and that, God didn't have that many prophets in the damn Bible. But all these pastors and all these the male and the female, call themselves prophet and prophetess and all this nonsense. God spoke if you had a dream. God don't speak to you in a damn dream. I just said the Bible said that God do not speak to us anymore. The last person who he speak to was Jesus Christ, who he sent here on earth, right, to administer his words, right? So come on now. Right? Nigger is so damn dumb. It's unbelievable. Ain't no fear here though. They tend to forget my family is Malcolm X smoker, so the bloodline runs deep.